Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and just like that, the NFL draft is nearly here. It really snuck up on us, right? Starting Thursday night, heading into Saturday afternoon, hundreds of young prospects are going to be selected by one of 32 teams to begin their NFL journey in earnest. Now look, as Dolphins fans, more specifically, this being a Dolphins show, we're going to focus on Miami and what our potential strategies going in are going to look like. Because unlike in seasons past, the Dolphins don't have a lot of picks to play with and definitely no high-end selections, allowing us fans to actually get excited about bringing in a blue-chip prospect like a Jaylen Waddle or Jalen Phillips. Instead, Miami's going to need to target guys who fit their system, guys who other teams might overlook but could be contributors on our team because of the scheme we run. Who are these guys? Where are they going to play? Let's talk about it, and let's dive in. The Dolphins have a combined 12 picks in this year and next year's NFL drafts. But here's the thing, only 4 of those picks are going to be had this year. Next April, we're going to have plenty more to discuss in terms of specific players and moves that can be made, considering the team has 2 first-round picks, a second, 2 thirds, one from New England as a result of the Devontae Parker trade, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. That amount of capital lets you do a lot of things and be flexible if you want to move up and down the board. This year, though, Miami's limited in their options. Why is that? Simply put, the team decided that they valued a stud veteran receiver, Tyreek Hill, over a handful of prospects who maybe one day could become something, but just as likely could be out of the league before making any real impact. And I think it was the right move, and I believe most others do as well, because as Chris Grier himself said, you're not finding Tyreek Hill in this draft, and frankly, it's not really fair to these young receivers and weapons to even compare themselves to a player of his caliber, especially not as rookies. So we don't have any high-end selections, that's fine, but what picks do we have? Well, barring any trades, the Dolphins are going to be picking at the end of the 3rd round, pick 102, the 4th round, pick 125, and 2 times in round 7 with picks 224 and 247. That is not a ton of capital to play with. Now, let's address the possibilities with these picks, first from the perspective of board movement. Because according to the standard NFL draft value chart, that's sort of the thing that started in the 90s with Jimmy Johnson. It allows front offices and GMs to assign numerical values to all the picks in the draft rounds 1 through 7. That way they can determine whether or not trades are fair, whether or not compensation is adequate. Again, it is kind of arbitrary considering that a pick's value is in essence nothing. It's all the player you select with it, but still it would be mayhem trying to figure out whether a 4th is worth a certain amount, whether a 4th's worth 2/6, is a 4th worth a 5th. I don't understand. It's all confusing. So based on that value chart, which the league uses, these are the values of each of Miami's selections. 102, 92 points. Pick 125, 47 points. Pick 224, 1.1 point, and 247, 1 point. So in total, Miami's got about 141.1 points of value. That's equivalent to the 90th pick in the NFL draft, and that's an earlier 3rd round selection. So you see, even if Miami does fall in love with a certain player, they'd have to give up all their picks to just move 12 spots. That really wouldn't make much sense. But here's the thing. The 2 7th round picks, obviously not valued highly at all, combined for 2.1 points. So Miami could keep those as scratch tickets, lottery tickets, flyers on high boomer bust type guys, and then package picks 102 and 125 to also move up to that 89-91 range. That could be an option, especially if a player they covet or have like a 2nd round grade on falls that far into the 3rd round. Equally, the Dolphins could throw in a 2nd or one of their 3rds from next year, along with 102 and 125, to add even more value to actually jump into the 2nd round. But again, I don't really see Miami doing that. My estimation is that unless a specific player that they've identified who fits perfectly for them begins falling into the early third round, they're not going to make any moves, and they're likely going to keep their haul for next season intact. So we talked about this last week, but what positions should the Dolphins target with these draft picks this season? Luckily for us, the positions of need, they actually have legitimate options in round 3, specifically center and inside linebacker. Now, we know that these are the needs for the Dolphins, but again, this isn't the first or even second round. It's round 3. So you're not going to find immediate starters in this round, and if you do, then that was a home run pick. What Miami should do is focus on BPA, best player available. If that means that there's a corner that you love, who you have rated highest at 102, pick him. If that means you got a higher grade on a punter, take the punter. I want ballers on this team, and drafting for need is the quickest way to screw yourself over. Now we're going to talk about 3 players who are potential candidates for the Dolphins at pick 102. You got running back James Cook from Georgia, offensive lineman Cole Strange from Chattanooga, and linebacker Channing Tindall, also from Georgia. They all got something in common. First, they could all be sitting on the board at the end of the third round at 102, and more importantly, all 3 of these names were guys that the Dolphins brought in for visits as part of their 30 league-sanctioned pre-draft visits. And if you look at Miami's previous 30 visits, you'll see that a lot of the guys who did come in ended up at some point getting drafted. Even going back a few years to like a 7th rounder, Terrence Fede out of Marist. Do you guys remember Terrence Fede? He was brought in on a 30 visit, and look at that. Miami used him in the 7th round and got him as a flyer. He did do pretty well for a 7th rounder. Obviously, didn't really make much of an impact, but it just goes to show the value of these 30 visits and how you can glean a little bit of information from who the team brings in. Now, look, here's where I rank them in terms of what I want to see Miami do. First, Cole Strange. He's an interior offensive lineman who can play center at the next level. He excels in zone blocking, the scheme that Miami is going to be running with Mike McDaniel, and he's going to provide competition in the room, much needed competition. Because remember, Michael Dieter did some nice things last season when he was healthy, but he ain't no verified stud, right? Anchoring the middle of the line. And Chris Grier himself said that the team would be looking to bring in competition specifically at center. Now look, there's still a big name out there that our Dolphins have been linked to, J.C. Tretter. He was released by the Browns and is still one of the better interior linemen in this league. But if the two sides are far off on contract negotiations, then bringing in a cheap rookie under team control is not a bad alternative. And let's be honest, you can bring in a rookie, and that might make J.C. Tretter's number go down, considering the market might not be there. And you can always bring him in and have the rookie sort of learn and develop if you do sign Tretter to a 1 or 2 year deal. Most mock drafts and pundits do have the Dolphins looking in this direction at 102, offensive line. And that makes sense. Miami still needs help on the line despite the Teron Armsteads and Connor Williams. They're great, but they can't block for all 5 starters. Here's the thing, though. I still want the guy higher on the board here. So if Chris Grier believes that another prospect has a higher ceiling and can be impactful for the Fins long term, more than a Cole Strange or a lineman or a center that potentially could help you now, go with the guy who will help you long term. The last time the Dolphins drafted specifically for need, we wound up with Austin Jackson and Noah Igbenogany. Don't make the same mistake again. Next up, I'd want the Dolphins to go Channing Tindall. Similar to the center position, there are a few veteran linebackers Miami has met with, but going younger is never a bad option, especially when you consider Miami still has Duke Riley, Sam McGuavin, and Landon Roberts. Bringing in a guy to learn, develop, and then eventually step into playing time when he is ready is best case scenario. And yeah, I know Duke Riley, Iguavin, Landon Roberts, they ain't no studs. They aren't guys that you want to have a top 5 defense, built around in the center of your defense, but they are guys who can hold it down. We saw it last year. That's who we had, and we still had an amazing defense. So if you can bring in a guy to take a few weeks into the season, kind of get his feet wet, and then start putting him out there and hope that he can take that jump, great. But you do have the guys, if worst case scenario, that guy you take isn't ready, you won't necessarily be screwed. Now look, specifically Channing Tindall, I really like him because he's explosive for his size, and he had a great Senior Bowl. And again, he could just be the lost man amongst the many studs that are on Georgia's defense who will likely be drafted higher than him. He's big, able to play downhill, and he plays inside to help defend the run. But unlike other players on the inside, he does have the speed, athleticism, agility to keep up with running backs and tight ends in coverage. He shouldn't be a major liability for Miami, and unlike the other two linebackers on the roster, they're straight up liabilities, talking to Landon Roberts and Duke Riley. But the need for another body who can actually make a positive impact for the front seven, it's huge. It's one of the few major needs, and definitely one of the few needs on defense. Miami has to ensure that they can stop the run and then force teams to become one-dimensional in order for your blitzes to work and for you to be very blitz heavy. If they're gashing you on first and second down, why are you sending a blitz on 3rd and 2? They're just going to throw a quick slant and probably get 10 or 15 on you. You want to send the house on 3rd and long. You want to make quarterbacks miserable. And if you can stop the run, that is a major step on the way to doing that. And a guy like Channing Tindall in round 3 would be excellent value in my opinion. Lastly, we're going to talk about James Cook. Also from Georgia, Cook is the younger brother of Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook, which honestly I think has given him a lot of hype because he's a solid running back, but he's not like any more distinct than any other 3rd round, 4th round running back that's come out over the last few years. I just think everyone goes, oh, his brother's a stud. Maybe this is a TJ Watt situation and he's being undervalued and he actually could be better. But unlike Dalvin Cook, he doesn't have that same level of first-round hype or pedigree with stats and just domination in college football. James Cook, don't get me wrong, he's fast, agile, and, most importantly, comfortable running a zone-style attack. He did so at Georgia, and he seems to always be moving forward. His contact balance, excellent, and he has some good hands to be a weapon in the passing game as well. So, yeah, he's not Dalvin Cook, but he's definitely not bad. I like the player. I think he can be a solid contributor for most any NFL franchise. My issue is the investment. Don't get me wrong, the 3rd round is exactly where I want you finding starting running backs, not 1 round sooner. But the Dolphins did shell out money, some serious money, for Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. Not to mention, you still got Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed on the roster. So I feel like there is depth at the position, which has not been there before. So look, Mostert is only on a 1-year deal, and he is extremely injury prone. And you don't want Edmonds to be getting all the touches. So I do understand the desire to add another back to the rotation. But considering the other positions that could be available at 102, I'm not sure this would be the wisest investment. Now look, I know some of you may be like, dude, you're contradicting yourself. I mean, you said take the best player available. And if that's James Cook, then damn it, take James Cook. Personally, though, I don't think a running back of his skill set would actually be the best player available on the board. If we can nab him at, say, 125, I'm a happy camper. But using the first pick in the draft on a position that you doubled up on in free agency feels a little redundant to me. I would rather draft a high-ceiling guy who might need a little development, an offensive tackle with boom or bust potential, a boundary or nickel corner who can step into the rotation if need be, or hell, even a tight end as insurance for Mike Gesicki leaving next offseason potentially, or if he gets hurt. But if James Cook is the guy on the board, then he's the guy. Personally, the player I want Miami to get is center Alec Lindstrom. He played at Boston College under the Dolphins' new offensive line coach, Matt Applebaum. He's got plenty of experience, has a ton of reps at BC, and I truly believe that he could be the starter on day one. He ran the zone scheme at Boston College, and the familiarity with the system and coaching should help him develop much quicker than other rookies. Now, is he going to be there at 102? We'll find out, but I'm excited to see the direction this team goes in this weekend because it's unknown. Do we trade up for a guy we believe to be an immediate impact player? Do we trade back? Do you want to acquire more assets for the future? Or do you just stand pat, take the best options available with each of the 4 selections? We're going to find out starting Thursday night, even though our beloved Dolphins aren't popping up on the screen for round 1. It is still a great experience and a lot of fun if you're a fan of football. The hope, the projections, the debates, the arguments of what guys are going to be. It's what we love, and I can't wait to see how it goes down. Hell, I'm doing a podcast. Of course I like debating football. So I'll be there watching Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, Rich Eisen, NFL Network, ESPN. I'll have them both on. I love the draft, even if our Dolphins aren't really taking part as much as I wish we were. Now, let's just say, though, I do hope that the Jets, Patriots, and Bills, they shit the bed so hard, but one of them is likely going to get a guy that we're going to hate. For example, I don't want Nakobe Dean nor Jameson Williams to become a Patriot. I will be so pissed. Because if you're a regular listener of the show, you can probably tell of all teams in the NFL, the one I have the strongest hatred for is the New England Patriots. It's also why I was so happy that we swept them last year. It's also why the skin on my whole body crawls when people suggest that Mac Jones is better than Tua. It's also why I was pissed we traded Devontae Parker to them rather than taking a fifth to send him to the NFC or to Jacksonville for all I care. But it's also the reason I do not want them getting a Nakobe Dean or a Jameson Williams, who would have been likely a top 15 pick if he was fully healthy. But again, we'll find out, and the Jets, with their multiple top 15 picks, likely are going to get some impact players, but I don't really worry about the Jets the same way I worry about the Patriots or the Bills. Now, before we wrap up, let's talk a little bit in the retrospective angle of this, because since Chris Grier took over drafting for the Dolphins in 2016, the third round has been a little tough to predict for him. Most people agree that by the third round, most slam dunk prospects are off the board, so having a bust or two is really nothing to be ashamed of. What's important is that you can find a few hits along the way. So if we look at Miami's third round picks going back to 2016, it's extremely bipolar. And that's honestly why I have no idea what to think or expect this weekend. 2016, under Adam Gase, Chris Grier selected Leonte Carroo, wide receiver. Bust. 2017, with Gase, he selects Cordrea Tankersley, corner from Clemson. Bust. 2018, under Adam Gase, Jerome Baker, linebacker. Stud. 2019, Flores' first year, Michael Dieter, offensive lineman. Books out. 2020, under Flores, Brandon Jones, great pick. And 2021, with Flores, Hunter Long, tight end. Incomplete/unknown. Of course, you can see the clear misses. Leonte Carroo, Cordrea Tankersley, but there are a couple of hits, right? Jerome Baker was a great pick, and Brandon Jones is turning into a solid starting safety as well. So Michael Dieter, like we said, he's disappointed, but the book isn't written on him yet. He can still improve and, frankly, become a plus starter in this league, immediately making that a good pick. And we still don't know about Hunter Long. So again, will the Dolphins get a serious playmaking contributor in the 2022 NFL draft? We can only hope. That's for sure. What about you guys in the pod? Who do you want to see Miami nab this year? Or would you want them to package a few picks, move up, vice versa, trade back, continue to add valuable picks for the future? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. I know a lot of college players, a lot of my former teammates getting drafted this year, so it's an exciting time. The year honestly went by fast. I was like, man, it's been a year since I've been drafted. It go by so fast, but it's an exciting time for all the college players, really.
That's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Timothy Ritchie, Brian Guger, Chris, and Commander Pig, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all again for the continued support. Please remember to like the video if you enjoyed the show. Subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember that the PhinsPod's available on all platforms. If you prefer audio, we're on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and of course, we are on YouTube for you visual guys. And continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram at PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day. Until next time, stay safe. Heat in 5. Love y'all.